Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Super Duper Homebrew Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Using 2 immersion chillers and an ice bath, to sparge or not to sparge on a mash and boil, harvesting yeast from trub, and upping the ABV after primary fermentation. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 251. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com. Over there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com down there, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me again on another episode of the show. Trying to do my best to not ask you how you're doing.
Yeah,
how are y'all doing?
251. We finished our 250th, and I guess now we have to wait a long time until we hit the next.
Until it's celebratory,
milestone, right?
You know, there was a long time where I thought every new episode is worth celebrating because we weren't doing them as frequently, and people would reach out and go, how come there's no new episode? And I just ignore them and be like, what are you talking about? New episode? I have no idea what you mean. But no, every episode, Todd, is worth celebrating. We did get a lot of feedback. We have listener feedback here in a little bit. I'll play. It was from a mystery guy. If you leave, hey, a couple things. When you leave feedback on our hotline, whether it's a text message or a voicemail like we prefer, make sure you leave your name for me, because this person didn't leave a name in it, and then I texted them like, hey, I'm going to use your feedback and let me know. And that was like 4 days ago, and I haven't heard back from this person yet. So if you want your $25 gift card to kegconnection.com, you gotta leave the information so I can adequately give you Todd's money. I love giving out Todd's money. You just have to be able to claim it. And Todd, you're okay with me giving out your money. I mean, people think that I'm just like willy-nilly with your like credit card or something, but this is all Todd Burns approved, right? So I'm not stepping out of line. Why does that keep happening? Oh. Anyway, no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, it's we're happy to have people participate. It's a lot of fun. I'm glad to give away my hard-earned money. So yeah, absolutely.
Before I get into some of the small talk that we had planned, and then a recap of last week's live brew day, I did want to say, I don't say it enough, and I get a lot of feedback, especially when we did our live brew day. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like this video, comment below with any suggestions or feedback you have, and subscribe if you're not already. There's some like bell icon I'm told to say. Apparently that's what YouTubers say. They go, oh, click the bell icon so you know when new videos come out or whatever. All of the above. But also, more importantly, if you're an audio-only listener, I implore you to go leave us feedback, because sometimes go look at our Apple Podcast feedback sometimes. Mainly people usually give feedback based off of one episode they hear and when they're really angry. And this last one, this lady was, I guess it had to be Todd, because Todd was the one who kept giggling at the concept of head retention. And that's it. We're not giggling. We're not giggling over that anymore, Todd. It's over, because she might be listening.
Yeah, you know what? She probably shouldn't listen. I mean,
this one person. Well, that's the thing.
She basically accused me of being a 13-year-old child, giggling at that. And I think that most of my friends and family would agree with that statement. So.
Well, and then I knew she was talking about me in the review because she said one guy said he's married to a white woman and he tried to speak on behalf of what white women drink or something like that. And I was like, I have to clarify it for her. I play my Latino card up well, lady. And yes, I did marry a white woman. And it was just a joke. I don't speak on behalf of all. I don't speak on behalf of my wife. That's why sometimes I forget when I make inside jokes with you guys. One, not everyone listening has any context to that inside joke, especially if they're new listeners. You'll need to go back to every episode and hear how I have no control over my household full of women, my wife and 3 daughters, and none of us.
And I can vouch for that. He's absolutely being controlled from all sides.
Absolutely.
So,
this is the one outlet I have to pretend. And what did it get us? A 1-star review. But anyway, if you do like what we're doing, we would appreciate whatever platform you're on. I know we get some reviews on Stitcher. I don't think Pocket Cast does reviews, but there's a bunch of platforms, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening and or watching, we'd appreciate your feedback. And again, if it's, constructive criticism, we take that too. I've made many changes to the show off of the feedback that people have provided. Not always, I'm not always happy at first. Like, oh yeah. But then I think if it's a good suggestion, we implement it or we take it into account, which one of the suggestions has been enough small talk that's not relevant to brewing. So I'm segueing us to the next small talk. We have October recipes ready for the Trub Club members. The yeast has been ordered. It's going to be here next week. They'll start shipping out on the 25th. Your options, if you're in our Trub Club, patreon.com/homebrew happy hour or homebrewhappyhour.com/club. The 2 recipe choices for this month are the dark side of the chocolate stout or the anything but ordinary bitter. First off, the artwork on these recipes, if you just go to homebrewsupply.com and look at them, or catconnection.com and look at them, I have to say, Todd, it's some of the best artwork we've ever had on recipes. Whoever did that is just an exceptional,
phenomenal person,
visionary artist, I think. But I've brewed, my dad and I, one of the first extract beers we did was this chocolate stout recipe. And friends, I tell you what, it is delicious. It's an incredible stout. We did the extract version of it, which made it just that much quicker and easier of a brew day, but I can vouch for it that it is absolutely delicious. And you have an optional, you have to source. I don't think cocoa nibs come with it. I know the cocoa powder doesn't come with it, or cacao powder, or however you say it, but do both if you can. Definitely at least do the cocoa nibs, but if you can get the powder too, just makes it super chocolatey. I like these kinds of
We order
stouts.
Nibs all the time, so it probably does come with
it probably does come with nibs then.
It does.
Yeah.
It does come with, okay. It is so delicious. It's like a dessert beer, right? It's almost as delicious to enjoy with the cigar as my breakfast stout, which we just brewed and transferred 11 gallons of. That's my segue into, we did live brew day, and I talked to Todd. Was it Monday we talked? And we were like, you were like, dude, I didn't see any activity in any of my buckets from that rye beer I brewed. I was worried. And then I went and did a reading, and it's done. Like from
Yep, it's done. And it's actually lower than it was supposed to get to, but not by much. And I tasted it. I think it's going to be really good. Shout out to Jeff from Ugly Pug Brewing. Jeff,
Evil Pug.
What's that?
Evil Pug, not Ugly Pug.
I thought it was Ugly
No,
Pug.
it's Evil Pug.
Oh, Evil Pug.
You remember the T-shirts he got us?
He got for you and me, right, James? I don't think he talked.
Oh, I thought
he didn't have any
and it's
really
a pug with devil horns on it
for really fat people.
They don't
he
make
didn't
them
have
in
any t-shirt.
4 at sell, Todd. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, 1 to 2. So anyway, I'm going to call it Evil Pug Brewing Ugly Pug Brewing, because I have a pug. I don't know if you know that, Jeff, and it's pretty ugly, but
The bold
cute, and it makes it's so ugly it's cute. We like to say.
You say it's ugly. My girls, every time I go up to the ranch, they try to bribe me to steal Brady, your pug.
Oh, Brady's such a good dog.
Brady's
He really
such
is.
a good dog.
He's a great pug.
Pugs are cute. They're super cute. And
So, yeah, I think it turned out well. I actually transferred it. I sent you all some photos yesterday. Did you get those of transferring it into the secondaries?
absolutely, because I sent mine.
Did I? I got the one with Charlie swimming.
I have never. Oh, Jug, did you get that one too?
Oh, there it is.
I may have enjoyed a few beers transferring before I sent that video. Yeah, but anyway, I've never filled one. I've never filled 3 secondaries that much before. The two of them spilled over the top, and the only reason it's barely below is when I pulled the hose out, it went down a little bit. I mean, they were absolutely full to the top. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that.
It is. My dad and I did 11-gallon transfer yesterday, and we could have done it Monday. Today's Wednesday when we're recording this, because I'm going to be up at the ranch this week. I'm going to be up at the ranch this week with my dad. My dad's going to come to the office. He hasn't been to the office yet, so that'll be fun. I'm going to put him to work, maybe. Not like when the girls come with me, I put him to work when we need the little fingers, like stitching the soccer balls and the tennis shoes. But
right.
We'll see what my dad can do. He's retired. He's got to have some kind of manual labor skill in that wheelhouse of his. Probably.
Oh yeah.
But I was super surprised at how quick, that is the power of imperial yeast, if I do say so, because my dad was worried. He knew there's fermentation because one of our blow off tubes had a little bit of buildup in it, and he had to resolve that. And we took our numbers, we were spot on. We were spot on our original gravity, and we were spot on with our final gravity. And even though we had a little bit of spillage when we were mashing, because we accidentally did 1.25 quarts per pound as opposed to the 1 of grain, which we should have just done the 1, so it would have fit in there a little bit easier. But either way, I'm happy we hit our numbers. He used Sumatran coffee this time, Todd. No Folgers.
Wow. Wow.
Calling this
I didn't think Scott had it in him. I thought he was too cheap to do that. He
only bought enough for the batch. He didn't buy any to enjoy. He bought enough, like he weighed it out. That's all I need. Paid his $3 or whatever. But this will be the first Folger. If it's not as good, we know, objectively speaking, it's because Folgers is best.
Oh gosh.
I'm just saying, if it's not as good, if y'all are like, there's something different about this than last year's, let me go. It's because it's fancy Sumatran coffee. It's not red label Folgers or whatever the cheapest bottom shelf version of it is. But anyway, and James, real quick with your brew day, you did a lager, so I can't expect it to finish out that quick. But how's fermentation going for you?
I checked it. There was some lag time, so I'm sure. Well, I know I didn't pitch enough numbers. But it seems to be doing all right now.
Well, you got it really cold too. You warmed it up a tiny bit, right?
Yeah, I'm using my cooler auxiliary circuit through a cooler and a pump, and then I've got an external switch to the pump. So it has to read from the outside, and the chiller's on the inside. So there's a difference there, and you just kind of have to play around until you get the temperature right. But it's at 52 degrees right now. And it's chugging along. So it'll take a couple of weeks. I ended up with 18 and a half gallons. And I remember one of the people watching that day wanted to know how I was going to get 19 gallons. Because I had mentioned I wanted to get 19 gallon yield out of that. And he was like confused at how I could get that out of a 20 gallon system. So I wanted to address that real quick if I could. So what I did was I started at the very tippy top, over 19 gallons. And then I watch my controller go, I have a good steady boil, not vigorous because there's not enough space left for a vigorous boil. Let it cook on until I get about 15 minutes before the end of the boil. Obviously, I'm down to about a little over 17 gallons. And what I'll do is I'll take RO water and I'll just top it back up to where I think I need to be. And it'll boil on for 15 minutes. I do my final hop addition, my whirlpool. And I've never had an issue. Todd does it as well that way.
Yep.
And if you want to get a specific yield, you got to watch your gravity though. So if you're super low on gravity, obviously you don't want to add more water to weaken it down. But my problem was that my gravity was way up there.
Yeah, mine was too high too. Those damn brow tags are too efficient. They just work too well,
That's what you kept telling me.
So get this target for 18 gallon batch. And I was using the Brewer's Friend software. I was at 18 and a half gallons and I was at 1060. So
it's going to be nice.
Wow. I'm sure several people listening are going, Todd says that every time about his brew. He knows that he could add less ingredients, right? So.
Yeah. Well, and that was what I said too. And you're like, no, I like my beers like this. And you do keep making great tasting beer. So I wouldn't change anything about whatever it is you're doing.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic. That. Where was I going to go with that? Oh, I know where I was going to go with that. I think having all this beer now on tap that you're about to have, because you're going to have what James just did. Well, actually, James, you had a lager fermenting already.
Mm-hmm. I've got two going. I've got
Is that for the party as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I got a Pilsner with locally grown Cascade hops, and that's in the Spike conical. And then we've got 18 and a half gallons in the Blinkman conical.
Goodness gracious.
I actually do not have room to put kegs back in my Keyser, though, is the only problem.
What are you going to do?
Completely full of 3 giant boxes of beer that Josh won't let me drink because people send it to him.
No.
But he never drinks it when he's there at my house.
That's not true. Well, first off, how dare you? You always have good beer on tap, and I forget about it because I don't hardly open the beer fridge. When we drink commercial beer, you go to the beer fridge to get it for us. You're like, oh, I'll get you a beer because I'm sitting outside enjoying the beautiful view.
Well, this week you're going to be drinking beer from those boxes this week. So
I know you told me.
Get ready.
You said me and my dad have to pull our share. I think is exactly.
Listen, I had 2 Kolsch's out of there from the Kolsch Cup. There's still beer in there from the Kolsch Cup, and they were both incredibly good Kolsch's.
That's what you told me.
I've got to tell the 2 guys that you gave me their information, but man, they were both really good. So
I know.
We got some good beer in there.
I know. I'll do my part Thursday night, and I'll take some home with me to clear out some space for you so that you can have a place for fermentation. I think you should just get a backup fridge. You need a backup fridge. You have a backup fridge. You need a backup fridge. That's the solution, Todd.
I have right now. I can immediately count. I have 8 fridges at my house and a huge freezer.
Yeah, but most of those are used. They have groceries in them or deer meat in them or something. I mean,
I agree. I'm just saying. It seems like most people don't have 8 fridges. You know,
they don't. All right, we do have questions for you. Before we get to the questions this week, it is for listener feedback. I'm not going to replay that. It's time for, but I messed that first part. Anyway, we have a very short and sweet listener feedback. If this was you, and I'm going to know because the number, you have to text me. I don't want random texts going, yeah, that was me. Give me the gift card. No, it has to be from the number I actually texted back. But here's some feedback voicemail for us.
Hey, guys, I got some listener feedback here. How about some more live brew days? Good.
I like the enthusiasm. That's why. How about some more live brew days? You know, yes, that was one of the biggest feedbacks I got after our live brew day. After any live brew day we do, believe it or not, more times than not, people go, guys, y'all got to do these more often. If not live brew days, these live streams. So I know in November, I think the first Saturday of November is Learn to Brew Day. I'm going to make some content either to publish live as a premiere, and I'll be there to interact in the bottom right corner for anybody, because I'm going to be doing an extract batch of Kolsch, or I might just brew it live. It depends, because that is opening weekend of deer season. And I haven't been invited yet, but if I was going to be playing music and invited to a certain person's opening weekend festivities, then I would pre-record the info or do it from up there.
Yeah. That'd be cool if you want to come play music again. You told me you were brewing, so I thought, well,
I'm not hunting, so I could brew up there.
You should brew on the brow tag while we're all hunting. Yeah,
that's what I mean. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, okay, we could all. I'd help you with that if you want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Then that's what we'll do. I'll have our next live brew day for members of our Trub Club at any level. We publish the links to our Trub Club through Patreon, as well as I'll just say the super duper secret group, but the Trub Club Facebook private group, where when you join, you get a link to all that stuff at any level from $1 up to the recipe receiving tiers that go up to like $100 some odd for 15-gallon batch recipes every month.
I was just kidding about helping you, though. I should mention. Sorry.
No. I thought you just meant you would accommodate that. Like, yeah, I'll help you. Like, as in you'll let me do it. Not that you're going to be hunting.
Okay, good. You understood that.
I know Todd speak. Trust me. I speak Todd Burns. But anyway, so our next brew day will be the first Saturday of November for Learn to Brew Day. That'll be our next live one. And you can watch it live with us by joining us at patreon.com/Trub Club to get the unlisted YouTube link. So our first question of this week's show was a text message from our buddy Emery, who used our hotline at 325-305-6107. Emery wrote, I plan on using a dual immersion chiller configuration exactly like what you guys use. One question, do you also put the kettle in an ice bath? I can speak on behalf of you guys. Y'all do not ever put your Herm setup.
For us to put it in an ice bath, we would need a very, very large ice bath. So,
yeah, not to mention the fact that I don't know if we could pick that up full. The handles would support the weight.
Oh, good point.
Yeah,
good point.
No, plus it's so fast. I mean, if you've got a batch that's small enough where you could put it in an ice bath, and you have that same setup, you're going to cool it down so quick. You don't need an ice bath.
Now, I can speak from my perspective, my experience with my pop, where with the cooler brew days, and we have a 10-gallon batch tops, and there's the two of us, and we can lift it. I don't think we've done both. We've either done an immersion chiller in it and we put it in a tub, because my mom, one of the good things about my mom collecting other people's garbage over all the years, she has a bunch of those wash tubs like on their fence of different sizes. So we'll get that, fill it with ice, and then put the kettle on top of it with an immersion chiller in it. And that we've done that before. I don't believe we've ever had to do the kettle, the immersion chiller in the kettle, the immersion chiller in a bucket full of ice, and the kettle in ice. Because let me backtrack and explain what the dual immersion is for people who maybe only listen. This is your first time listening to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confused and I use it all the time.
So. Okay, this is your first time listening to us. I haven't already scared you off with anything rude or condescending or whatever, and you're still here. Let me explain our dual method that I'm talking about. Todd started it. It's great for the Texas heat kind of brewing, where an immersion chiller is in your wort kettle. You're boiling, 15 minutes left, you put it in there, it's all sanitary, and then you're running, we use it from, at my home, like a garden hose to that line, to that chiller, and you're pumping cold water through it to cool your wort down to pitching temps. Sometimes in Texas, that's just not enough, because what is your water temperature at? 85, it depends on the time of the year. So what we also do is we run a line to another immersion chiller that's in a bucket of its own, submersed in ice, and we run that to the immersion chiller that is in the boil kettle. So that way you're now bringing much, much colder water into that immersion chiller that's in the wort to help lower it. And that's pretty stinking effective in our experience, like what we're talking about. An ice bath would be taking the actual wort kettle itself and putting it in some people do a sink if they're doing a small enough pot, but like I said, we have wash tub that we do have done it in before. Did that clarify it enough for you, Todd? I can go from there?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's super easy. It's a coil. One of the coils goes in the kettle. One of the coils goes in a bucket with ice in it, and you super chill the water before it goes through the coil in the kettle, and you've got nice, cool wort, and you pitch your yitch in, right?
I just said that. You just repeated you're taking my glory. But I was going to go build up.
I said the same thing you said, but I said it in 15 seconds instead of 3 minutes.
But I said it without the speech impediment. But you can't. Hey, and if anyone leaves a bad review, I have street cred. I have a speech impediment. You can't go, oh, he made fun of people with speech impediments. Yeah, because I have one. Anyway,
why would you make fun of people with speech impediments? That's terrible.
You make fun of people with speech impediments every week.
No, only you. Only you.
That's on purpose. I'm a person. No, Emery, I would say this. If you're like my pop and I and you're working, you're not on a Herm setup. We need context sometimes. If you're not on a Herm setup, if you're doing a simple thing, you could do that if you absolutely want to get it down quicker, or if you feel like your environment requires it. But we don't do it regularly because we don't require that kind of thing. What do you guys do if you're like when you're inside? What other methods have you had to implement on your Herm setup to get it colder, or have you never had an issue getting it to pitching temps, no matter what time of the year it was? And
no, never had an issue. I mean, if you have enough ice, you're never going to have an issue.
Right.
Yeah, you just have to address the situation and what you need to do. There's times when I can use the freezable bags, the ice packs.
Oh, right.
And a lot of times in the winter when it was really cold, we got cold tap water. I don't have to do anything, just wait for it to drop to pitching temp. But then in the summer when it's 90 degrees coming out of the tap, I have to go get, 20 gallons of ice.
Yep.
And the trick, if you do that here in Texas, you wait. Don't add the ice yet.
Yeah.
You wait till it's as down as it's going to get, and then you add the ice. But more importantly, you turn the water off. If you don't turn the water off, you're going to heat you're defeating the purpose.
Wait,
So-
how do you know about that? Has that ever happened?
Oh yeah. I was like, it's not falling, and I'm using all this ice. Well, I never turned the water off, and the 90-degree water was melting the ice, and it wasn't transferring the heat out of the wort. So
And he definitely meant 20 pounds, not 20 gallons of ice. So
Oh, I didn't even
Yeah.
catch that. Did he say 20? I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
I think I did.
Oh, okay.
I pictured 4 5-gallon buckets.
Actually,
Worth
you know what? It is 20 gallons because I use 4 buckets of ice.
Do you really?
Yeah, he
I
wasn't,
do. Yep.
he wasn't kidding,
Wow.
Todd. See?
Yeah.
But like,
It's
I use
actually works out to be
20
about 40 pounds of ice because I
Right.
have to do 2 20-pound
Wow.
at the local dispenser. I can get 2 buckets for each one, and
Okay.
4 buckets of ice.
that and that you brought up 2 good points. The one about the turning the water off. Yeah, if you need before you
this
add
is
the
super hot here.
before you add the ice, you need to get your it down as much as you can with your water source, because otherwise, like you said, you're just wasting ice.
Yeah, yeah.
Before you do it.
Absolutely, yep.
Once you hit that plateau, add the ice, and then you'll start seeing it come down.
I get it under 100. That's my number. If I get it under 100, I'm ready to get going. I can start throwing ice in there.
100.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible. I always forget to buy the ice. So I'm running over to the house and stealing all the ice from my wife's fridge. But it's great when you got 8 fridges and freezers. You know, you got plenty of ice. So you just got to look around more.
One brew day, we were up there. It might have been my brew day, that pale ale, because you were like, just get the whatever ice you can. So I was taking ice from your cocktail molds and throwing that.
Oh yeah, I do that.
Like fancy ice to help cool down my wort. But anyway, Emery, yeah, if you need more questions, obviously email tburns@ketconnection.com. Todd is the man when it comes to configuring a solution for your brew day, whether it be the actual setup or your chilling or whatever. And there's that video that Todd did about the 2 wort chillers that he uses. It's a product showcase video. It's at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. So what we think, the short answer, do you also put the kettle in ice bath? No, we just do the 2 setup, and it's been working for us real good. Sometimes you got to use more ice depending on how hot it is outside, and sometimes you just got to be a little patient, but it's always worked out for us. And I can't attribute any of my brew day or beer woes to the cooling process, right? That was not ever been the issue for me. So anyway,
right. And we're the worst. We're in the worst case scenario. So if we can cool it down with that, anybody can, unless maybe you brew in Death Valley.
Yeah, some Florida man's going to reply like, "Oh, you think it's hot there?" And yeah, but anyway,
Or Arizona.
Good point. Yeah. There's a lot of places that are just hot and miserable, and we're just brewing. But anyway, Emery, thank you so much for submitting your question. This is a great time to remind you, if and when we take your question on a future episode, we do give you a $25 gift card to ketconnection.com. Moving on to question number 2, came from our buddy Carl, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. And he wrote, "First, let me start off by saying that I love the information you provide every episode. It's great to learn and laugh with you all. My question is about using an original mash and boil without a pump. A good friend of mine upgraded to a grainfather, and he gave me his 2-year-old mash and boil." That's a good friend. From what he has told me, it works great, and he ran 20 plus batches through it. I am completely new to these all-in-one kettles, so excuse my dumb question when I ask if I am supposed to do a sparge. Like Josh, I am lazy. And the thought of getting more equipment out for my brew day doesn't sound convenient. Can I skip a traditional sparge with an all-in-one kettle, or is it important enough to include? If I can use this and only this one piece of equipment besides my fermenter, of course, then I want to do that. What do you think? I think I'm offended by calling me lazy. Carl, that's a good question. No, I sparge. Even if you go watch our Anvil Brew Day video that Joe and I did, I was recording it. Anytime have published a video and I'm not explicitly in it, I'm behind the camera recording. So when I say us, that's what I mean. But that Brew Day that Joe and I did on that Anvil, because I'll say, Carl, you don't want to get more equipment out. This is the best kind of equipment to get out, even if it's like a stock pot on your stovetop, or if you have another kettle, or we use the Cooler Brew hot liquor tank for this, because there's no cleaning. It's just water. It's just hot water. So it doesn't add to my cleaning. Because when you say you're lazy, I think you're talking about not wanting to clean. and raising my hand, I'm in that same boat. But I sparge mainly because that's what I've always been taught. But James, you are the all-in-one man. I know, even though you're the Herms King now, your beers on the Grainfather were also just legendary. The first alt beer I ever had from you. So I know all-in-one brewing in and out. You've got the most views of any videos we've ever published with your thoughts on all-in-one. So what would you tell Carl about brewing on an all-in-one and sparging?
Well, I would tell you, Carl, don't forget that mash bowl's got a basket that you can lift up. So when you get towards the end of the mash, get you a couple gallons of water and boil it up to about 180 degrees because you want that temperature offset. Somewhere between 175 and 180, I think you're safe. If you do the strike water calculator, you're going to be mashing like at 150 and you want to be at 170. It'll tell you what temperature the water on the stove needs to be. As long as it's hot, don't use boiling water, but then lift the basket up, rotate it, let it set up, and gently pour and rinse those grains, and you'll find that you'll get a lot more sugars. You don't want to leave any sugar in the grain bed, and the sugar is alcohol.
Yep.
So your yield will be better, your gravity will be better, and it's not that big a deal. It's just a little extra step that'll help you.
And like I said, because from one lazy man to another, Carl, because he used that word, it's not offensive to Carl. He called himself lazy. Like I said, I think you'll be happier with the beer that you get results with the more sugars you get than you would be saving the time to not heat up sparge water, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, what are your thoughts, even though I think you've never brewed on an all-in-one in your life?
Oh, I've been there when we brewed on an all-in-one several times. We brewed on one in Germany, right? Although we're technically going to give Stefan kudos for brewing on that, right? That was his first time to ever brew.
Yep.
I always sparge. I mean, you don't absolutely have to, but you're, like you said, you're just throwing away money because you're not getting all the sugars out of there. I mean, you don't have to get all the sugars out. When I was brewing last week, I got to the point where the sugar was at about 1.020, and I was like, I'm done. I've got 17 gallons in here. I don't want to try to boil too much water, so I stopped. But I mean, at that point, if you don't sparge at all, you've got a lot more sugar than 1.020. Probably a whole lot more. So,
Well, and on the Anvil Brew Day video, I didn't go back and watch it, but I'm 95% sure we did a fly sparge because we had it readily available. Todd's Barn is like Wonka's chocolate factory for brewers of equipment, and pick what you want and brew how you want. So we had the stuff to do it. James, you could do a fly sparge, you could do a batch sparge, right?
Yeah. You can do it either way you want. Whatever works. Just don't forget to don't leave those sugars behind.
Don't leave those sugars. That sounds like a George W. Bush policy. No sugars left behind.
Yeah, thanks to our good friends yeast, we can convert that into alcohol.
That's right. Yeast is our friend. I was going to try to plug yeast. Imperial again. Are they on my shirt? No, they're not on this shirt. Oh. We love Imperial yeast.
Oh, actually, now that you bring it up, they were supposed to be.
On this shirt? No, this was the old shirt. No. You're talking about the Kolsch Cup shirt. The Kolsch Cup shirt's the one I messed up and didn't put them on. But they were on all the marketing material. I just forgot to send the artwork, and I tried to throw our printer.
I can't pass up an opportunity.
I tried to throw our printer under the bus at first, and then I looked at the artwork. I was like, Todd, no, I sent him the wrong artwork. It's my fault. Poor guy. I always forget his name too. It's not Randy. Marty. Thank you. He's a really good guy.
Good guy.
And I will say this his prices, it's small town Comanche. You would think, it should be way more expensive. He's extremely competitive to all the online solutions that are putting people like him out of business. So we try to throw it as much as possible to You Name It is the name of their company. It came to my head. But anyway, yeah, Todd, thanks for pointing that out, that I may have messed up the shirt. No, this is one of the shirts that Todd started liking again because we used the cotton shirts.
Yeah.
Todd didn't like the polyester blends that stick to you. And he thinks they make them look fat. And I said, no, that's your lifestyle. But anyway.
No, they don't make me look fat. They make me sweat because I am fat.
That's right. Oh, because I also plastered a huge vinyl thing on the front. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You had a piece of vinyl. I was like wearing a trash bag.
Anyways, I'm digressing too much. I feel the bad reviews coming in. Carl, wrapping up your question. Yes, Sparge. The pump. I know he just said it didn't have a pump. That's not going to be relevant for the Sparge at all.
Well, in fact, just make sure you get a lot of good stirring in.
Yes.
During the mash.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're interested too, email James, jcarlson@cmbecker.com, and he'll email you what he did to add a pump to our original mash and boil, which is like 5 years old now at this point. It's 4 or 5 years old. And he actually added a pump to it because you wanted recirculation for the mash because you didn't want to have to just stir the whole time. We are big fans of recirculation during our mash. Yeah. It evens it out. It creates consistently good beer. We like that. But on your mash and boil, if you don't want to pump, you'll still make really good beer. It's a nice piece of equipment that's extremely affordable. And we know from our experience as retailers, the mash and boil was one of the first, I'll call it budget all-in-ones. Even though it's a solid machine, it's just entry level for pricing. It got a lot of people into all grain brewing because it was only like $300, where a grain father at the time, and still is, $1,000. People would rather spend $300 and dip their toes in than jump right into the whole Bluetooth and pre-warmth and all the other features that the grain father has. So I appreciate devices like the mash and boil. And then they added a pump, and I think that version went up to like $450 maybe. Or four or something. Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much, Carl, for submitting your question. Moving on to question number 3, came from our buddy Steven, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Steven wrote, re-harvesting yeast. What is the difference? And as in like regarding harvesting yeast. What is the difference between yeast cake and trub? I brewed a milk stout and it was all gunk in the bottom of my bucket. If I had wanted to save or harvest that, do I keep everything that's at the bottom? Or is there a way to tell what is yeast and what is trub, hops, gunk, etc.? Cheers. James, you're the only person I know of this group that has saved yeast. Owen and Casey at Imperial, I always use fresh pouches. I trust y'all's bags. I don't need to save yeast. But James does it not just, James is not cheap in the bad way. James likes getting the most bang for his buck. And if he's brewing the same thing over and over, you just keep using that same generation of yeast. So what would you tell Steven for harvesting yeast and separating the gunk from the good stuff?
Yeah, well, the biggest difference is trub is any of the stuff that's the dead yeast, proteins, hop particles, any of that junk, and it's going to be the first to settle at the bottom. The stuff you want is that white milky layer. That's the active yeast. So what I do is if I'm doing this, I'll harvest for the same style of beer. So if I'm doing a Pilsner, I'll do the batch, and when it's ready to keg, I'll have another one going in the setup, the Herms setup, and then when it's ready, I'll keg the beer, and then I'll pump it right on top of the yeast. And a lot of people say, "Well, that's not good because you're mixing all that dead stuff in with new wort." But we did that as a test, if y'all remember, and we did that with a Kolsch. Yep. And I did 5 batches, and the first batch was good. Second batch was better. Third was even better than that. Fourth wasn't as good as the third, but it still was a very good beer. And then by the time the 5th one rolled around, you could tell there probably wasn't much left doing it that way. Now, if I dump the fermenter, and typically what you want to do is you want to separate the good yeast from everything else, right? Which is the trub. So one way of doing that is you can take a little bit of sanitized or boiled and cooled water. You want to add that to the trub, swirl it up, put it in a smaller container, like a gallon. We have these gallon plastic buckets with lids that you can seal. You want to vent it a little bit because there still might be some activity. And then what you do is you just chill it down. And usually what happens is the yeast layer on top, you'll get the same thing happens again. You'll get the bad stuff on the bottom, and you'll get the milky layer on top. You want to decant that layer. If that means a sanitized spoon or, however you do it, but you want to get that layer off and then rinse it with more. Some people rinse 3 or 4 times. They'll just repeat that process over and over again. But what I have done in the past when I wash my yeast is I take a sanitized spoon and I'll scoop that layer off and put it into another container with sanitized water, and you can rinse it that way. And there's lots of videos on YouTube. Just go Google that. And the process it's one of those things. If you're not following me, you can watch a video and you can say, oh, okay, that makes more sense, because I'm bad about explaining things. I'm not a very good teacher, but I've only done that just a few times. I've had better success just pitching on top of old yeast and knowing that, 4 times is about as much as I want to do, and then I'll spend the money for new yeast.
But you were also your biggest critic on that Kolsch, because you let me try all of them, and the 5th one was still incredible. You could have went more. We could have pushed it more. It just wasn't up to the James Carlson standard of self-criticism.
Well, another thing I didn't even think about that you've got to worry about is every time you do that, you grow your yeast numbers up. So I think by the time that 5th one was coming around, the yeast had collected. I had built so many yeast numbers that it was coming out of the sample tube.
Okay.
So if you've got a dump at the bottom, you'll probably want to dump a little. And remember, the trub's at the bottom. So if you've got a good conical with a wide enough opening in a valve, you can get a lot of that out. And just watch it. Because in my experience, if you don't have a big enough throat for the valve, the yeast is going to compact. It's not going to flow anyway. But there's some good fermenters out there that have big openings. And if it does that, you can absolutely. There's one out there. Is it the Fermentosaurus? That has the collection bottle at the bottom
or
of the big old valve.
Yeah.
That is a good, excellent fermenter for harvesting yeast.
Yeah, and I think I don't even know the availability of the catalyst. That was one of the functions people like. You can just put like a little mason jar thing at the bottom of it and open it up. And I think some people said, oh, it had suck back and had oxidation issues, but I think that was few and far between on the reviews.
I think the spike conicals have a big enough valve where you can do that as well.
Really nice. Yeah. I told my dad, I told him, spoiler, I said, man, for Christmas, I want to get you like, glycol set up in a conical or maybe a brown tug, but, or I said all the above is what I really said, but he's where are we going to put it? And I was like, no, but just the convenience of having that. And bringing it back to Steven's question, if we wanted to do, we could be more creative with harvesting yeast in that sense. If we wanted to, I mean, it just makes it makes it easier. Because like Carl above pointed out, maybe I have a reputation for being lazy, and that kind of equipment. Todd, don't shake your head in affirmation. That's rude. But
another thing too to think about too is you could propagate. So in other words, you could take a clean white sample off the yeast cake, and then you could put it in a little DME. There's calculators online that'll tell you what you need to do.
Yep.
And then you can propagate the yeast and build up numbers, and that'll help. Because another thing, when you do what I did with the Kolsch, you get mutated yeast cells, and those cells number, and it slowly loses. Even though the numbers are up, it is possible that you can get off flavors from just the mutations that happen. That's why the labs like Imperial Yeast, we went and toured their facility, and they take samples of all the yeast cultures and they run them through all different tests and then propagate from there. So but you got to know what you're doing, and you got to be real careful, because you could also invite contamination if you do it wrong.
And what you're talking about too, and this is kind of a stretch, but a lot of our listeners, we get some questions about going from home brewer to pro brewer, brewing on like a herm setup, propagating yeast, harvesting yeast. That all does actually get you more ready for that realm of going and work at a brewery, because that's what breweries are doing, because they do make their dollars stretch, right? Like they're.
And also, we all know a brewer, Wes. He doesn't do any propagation, because the way he explained it to me is the yeast company that he gets his yeast from, it's not worth the extra work or the risk of contaminating, $2,000 worth of grain.
So he uses fresh yeast. I had no idea. I thought most commercial breweries were harvesting and
I'm sure a lot of them do, because that's a big savings.
It is, isn't it?
Big boys do. They have their own yeast lab. So,
right. Yeah.
But as far as microbreweries, it may not be in their best interest to do that
good for West, because they're making really good beer. That Kolsch was very popular on tap at my house, and the Czech dark pills or dark lager, Todd, that you brought, the Fleck U. or what do they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was delicious. So they're definitely making good beer.
Am I allowed to laugh at that name?
Look, I'm not. I don't know, man. I didn't.
So I listened to the whole thing about the propagating yeast, and it's all very interesting. But why? Now I'm confused on why we called our club the Trub Club. Trub sounds disgusting now. That it's almost like a derogatory name for our members.
You liked the name. I like the name too because it rhymes. I like Trub Club and it's quick. I like Trub Club.
But he was describing the Trub versus the white. I mean, maybe we should name it the White Milky Club.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it. No, I'm editing that out. No, I'm not. See, the problem, I think her name was like Dragonfly Lady 1, too. Dragonfly Lady, if you hear me, I'm sorry. I didn't edit all that grotesqueness out of the show. I should have done it for you. I'm sorry.
White Milky Club.
Stop
I like it. I think it sounds good. It's kind of rhymes too, right?
I'm going to mute you.
No, not really.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But it flows. It flows.
But it flows. Oh, gosh darn it, Todd. Gosh darn it, I hate you. Steven, thank you so much for submitting your question. I'm wrapping up this show with one final question from our buddy Joel, who also used the submission. No, pardon me, he didn't. I'm lying. He texted us in at 325-305-6107. Joel wrote, I just put a batch of IPA Smash in the fridge to cold crash. My question is, if I want to bump the ABV up, can I just add LME and ferment it again? What steps would I need to follow? It's only at 9. Can I push it up to 13? Wowzer. I want to get smashed is what he meant. Not just a single malt and single hop. He's saying I want to get smashed by this IPA.
I'm going to say no.
Okay. Yeah. Short and sweet. No, hear me out, guys. I would think you would want to calculate for your ABV before fermentation, like that should be part of your brew day calculations, right?
Yeah.
Can you bump it up and ferment again? What would that look like, James?
I wouldn't risk it.
Okay.
Because a lot of things, oxidation is the biggest thing. Anytime you add to a given batch. Another thing too is when you do the shake before you pitch the yeast, you're putting oxygen into the wort so the yeast has something to breathe. So all of that as it's going along, and with big beer, you also have to think about the yeast's capabilities.
Yeah.
Pitch enough. You got to have the right numbers for big beers like that. You get a lot of times. I know if I'm doing anything 9 or over, I'm going to use oxygen on the wort. With the oxygen, with a stone and a little bottle of oxygen and all of that stuff. But it's a whole different ball game on big beers, and I just think it's too risky. Ruining the batch trying to get just a few more points.
But, even if it wasn't a big beer, if it was a smaller beer, I would love to know if a listener has ever done that. I mean, I've never even heard of somebody doing that. If you're a listener and you've added and you've re-fermented, I mean, we've all pitched some more yeast because we didn't have enough activity, but I think this is different to me.
It's a lot different.
Yeah.
Well, and in the realm, I don't know, is the term imperial universal or does it depend on the style? Because one person told me before that 7.5 isn't imperial for a stout, but then I looked it up and it's like, yeah, it is for an IPA, but I don't know if it's subjective or not. But anyway, I think
that just means a lot more. It has more alcohol than the style normally does, is how I would define it.
Yeah.
But we're going to get a ton of people telling me what an idiot I am.
T-Burns at
to me, it's just whatever the style it is. So if you had an imperial Kolsch, maybe that's only 7% because it's supposed to be 4.5%.
Yeah. No, but my breakfast stout clone, I called it an imperial coffee stout because that's what it is, and we finished right at 7.5. And I think that's imperial. But either way, this is an IPA that's at 9 right now. That's a boozy IPA in my book. Yeah. Obviously, IPA is not really my preferred style, and I like session IPAs. Like your wife, Todd, brought me a whole case of Founders All Day IPA that's in my fridge. I've been enjoying that during the day.
Case? Not a 12-pack, but whole case?
No, I'm lying. It's a 15-pack. It was a 15-pack.
Well, that's still a lot. I mean, she didn't bring me that much beer.
Oh, well, do you want me to bring you some? Do you need some at the ranch?
I'm not a huge session IPA guy. I like a real IPA.
You know what I picked up? Sorry, Steve. Sorry, Joel. I'm gonna digress real quick. I did pick up some whiskey and some bitters and vermouth. I'm gonna be able to start making my own Manhattans here at the house.
I thought you meant you were actually bringing some this time.
Hey, well,
instead of just drinking my booze every time you come up. But now I understand what you mean.
And I've brought you Bullet before. I've brought you Tin Cup before. I think I've brought you Rebecca Creek once. No, I didn't. I drank that here. I didn't bring that to you. I will one day bring you that. I meant to go buy real. You know what? My dad and I are going through Blanco on our way up there. Maybe I could get a little bottle of real ales. You've never had it, right? I like
their whiskey.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've got this sign up in my over my bar.
I've never had their whiskey, so is it worth picking up? It's good.
It's good. Yeah, I think it's real good.
All right, we'll see.
I'm giving you a hard time. I'm more than happy to supply you with alcohol when you come to work. I mean, that's what a boss is supposed to do.
You're gonna be supplying it to 2 Steubings tomorrow night. It's going to be great. Anyways, back to Joel's question. No, I think we're all in agreement.
Oh, I thought we were done with it.
No, I was just saying I'm wrapping it up because I like having closure. Okay. I'm not a crazy ex-girlfriend. I want closure. We are all in agreement that it's not worth the risk, man. Just enjoy what you did finish at. And maybe next time, if you have the ability in your system to brew a bigger one, or if you want the beer to be that boozy and you don't have the way to do it, you have to lower your batch size so that it would fit in your current equipment. There's always a way to get around it. You may not yield as much beer as you want, but if your goal is that booziness, you can make it work, right, James? Like you can always make it work.
And it gives you peace of mind too. If you know your yeast is healthy or it'll work at 13% and your recipe is good with your fermentables, you've done your due diligence for oxygenating the wort and all of that, well, then you don't have to worry about it. But trying to get more, then you're going to be, or I say I wouldn't do it in the first place because I'd worry about, well, did I just mess it all up?
Right.
And then you obsess over how much it's fermenting the days after, and it's just not worth the effort. Stick with the 9, and next time you brew, then maybe focus on that.
Sometimes I give you a hard time about like you worry too much, and then my brew days happen, and I'm calling you every 5 minutes, and you're so nice to not tell me, Josh, you worry too much. But especially with the fermentation stuff, my dad, because it's always at his house. I don't know if anything happened. I don't know if anything happened. And it's always worked out. So relax. Don't worry. Have a homebrew. Joel, I'm sure that IPA is still going to be good. If you don't appreciate it, send some to Todd. 1800.
Yeah, 9%. Yeah. That's plenty for me.
Homebrew Happy Hour, 1800 EDC Parkway, Comanche, Texas, 76442. We actually do get beer. We get live yeast samples sent to us all the time. We've never received beer. That's illegal. But we've gotten live yeast samples sent to us plenty of times and have enjoyed it every time. So anyways, Joel, thank you so much for submitting the question. Fellas, that's all I've got for this week's show.
Cool.
I appreciate y'all's time. Especially appreciate y'all doing it a day early so we didn't have to try to crunch it in tomorrow while I'm trying to show off to my dad that I actually work and I'm giving him a tour of the office tomorrow. So anyways, thank y'all so much for your time and I'll see y'all next week.
Thanks. Take care.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, Imperial Yeast. Get a free pack of Imperial Yeast with a monthly recipe kit when you join our Trub Club. So go to homebrewhappyhour.com/club to learn more, or patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Steubing. Thank you for listening.